Hello there and welcome to Primetime News here on TV1. You're joining me, Devi Paldano. Now before we head into your stories in more detail, let's first take a look at your headlines this evening. Will the United States presidential election result be disputed? Trump to seek legal intervention, Biden to take counter-legal action. President calls on the public to continue day-to-day activities while abiding by health guidelines. Health Ministry to take action against hospitals that refuse to admit patients.
කිසිම වෙලාවක රෝගියෙකු රෝහලකට ඇතුළත් කර ගැනීමට ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කිරීමක් කිසිම රෝහලකින් සිදු විය යුතු නැති දෙයක්.
2 more dead whales wash up on the Panadura beach. Scientific probe to be launched into the deaths. The US 2020 presidential election is currently underway to elect the next president of the United States of America. There are 538 electoral colleges in total in the United States, while a candidate needs to win 270 electoral colleges or more to win the presidency. Trump won several crucial states, including Texas and Florida, while Joe Biden won Washington, California and Colorado. If elected in 2020, Joe Biden would be the oldest sitting president. Biden's election to the country's top office would also be the first time in 28 years in which an opposition candidate has beaten an incumbent president. Will Joe Biden win? Joe Biden or incumbent President Donald Trump, who will win this year's 2020 presidential election? Now, as the voting results come in for announcements, we are now joined by Chaturanga Aparachi and Tarusha Kumar Singh here in our very own newsroom to give us a statutory display and to explain what is going on in the United States right now. Tarusha, Chaturanga, it's over to you.
Thank you, David. Very good evening to all our viewers watching Primetime News on TV1. Newsfirst have been reporting about the US election that is taking place this year throughout since a couple of days ago as well. I brought you a very comprehensive report last night, but what is happening at the moment? We advise our viewers not to believe or not to trust what is visible to the naked eye. I am joined by a veteran journalist and my very good friend Chaturanga Aparachi. Chaturanga, what do you think the present situation is? Who is going to win?
Tarusha, we have to keep in mind a few things. That is that there are these areas called swing states or battleground states in the US election. As we all know, the system that they follow is starkly different to what we know as an election here in our country. And from what we know, Joe Biden, in terms of the numbers, stands at 238 electoral colleges to 213 for Donald Trump. You can see this on our interactive map. We will move into it in a little while. But what do we know at present, as you asked me? We know that there are 5 key battleground states for which the results are not announced as of yet, and we also know that Nevada and Alaska are also to announce their results, the official results, or as they call it, these states need to be called. Now, as we know, the person who gets the support of Georgia and Pennsylvania, which has 20 and 16 electoral colleges, will definitely go on to win the US presidential election. But that is usually the case. But however, this time around it seems a bit different, because Joe Biden has been able to tip the vote in favor, especially in Nevada as well as in Arizona. And right now, at the time we are speaking, at about 9 p.m. here and about the morning in the United States, Wisconsin and Michigan also seem to be tipping marginally in favor of Joe Biden at the moment.
Let me interrupt you right there, Chaturanga. Now, throughout US presidential elections way back in the 90s, throughout the 2000s, Pennsylvania, North Carolina and Georgia have been 3 very key states in the presidential election. Can you tell me who is ahead at the moment? I know that the final result has not been declared yet, but at the moment in Pennsylvania and North Carolina.
For that, let me move on to this screen over here. And then I can tell you that in Pennsylvania, we are looking at a lead of Donald Trump with 54.1%, and the reporting is still at 64%. The counting is still at 64%. And when we are talking about this remaining 30%, 30-odd percentage points, this is a huge value of votes.
Okay.
It's in millions. So this can go either way. But that is exactly what happened in Wisconsin and Michigan. Earlier on, when we spoke to our viewers, the voting was in favor of Donald Trump. However, with the reporting at 95%, almost 95%, almost done, in other words, it tipped in favor of Joe Biden, and the same thing happened in Michigan as well, 49.4 against 49.1, a 0.3% difference in both Wisconsin and Michigan. So therefore, if you're asking me who is leading at the moment, here's in terms of the numbers, it's Joe Biden. In terms of the electoral colleges that have been won at the moment, it is Joe Biden. Can Donald Trump match him at the moment? Unfortunately, from the numbers that we as Sri Lankans can observe and read, Donald Trump is not able to match the numbers from what we can read and understand here.
So simply you are saying Donald Trump would not be the next president of the
That
United
I
States.
cannot say, Tarusha, because as I mentioned to you, 64% is the reported vote count in Pennsylvania. We do not know where it will go. But in terms of the numbers, if you do simple mathematics, it's not that simple. I have to reiterate, it's not like in Sri Lanka, where we would add the electorates and then get the final result before the final result is announced. Here it's a bit difficult, and the election process goes on till next year actually. And now the people are voting for separate individuals as representatives or colleges to represent them at the Congress. Now when these colleges go on, these are the numbers that we're talking about. So Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina and Georgia have these numbers, and those people on the 14th of December will vote at the Congress to elect their president. So when the numbers are marginally equal, now we are looking at, if you add everything, we are looking at a situation where Joe Biden might receive about 271 and Donald Trump may end up with about 264, about 6 short of the 270 mark required to be a president. Now let me again switch to this screen over here and show you how things were back in 2016 when the presidential election happened last. This was the situation in 2016. Both Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina and Georgia were won by Donald Trump. However, this time around, these two states are in trouble in terms of Donald Trump's Republican Party, and these two states seem to be tipping in favor of Joe Biden. Now, what does that mean in terms of the numbers that are required? Now, in 2016, when it was Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, Donald Trump was able to get 303 electoral colleges in under his name. So this is the background that we are looking at. How this might change in 2020, one stark fact that we have to keep in mind is about Arizona. Now, Arizona was a Republican state throughout, and the last time there was a shift like this, where it is now a Democratic state, well, last time was in 1996. So this time around, Joe Biden has been able to tip it in his favor by 51%. So this is what we're talking about. This is not a simple numbers game. It is a complex system to understand. But in terms of the numbers, it seems a bit difficult for Donald Trump at the moment.
That is what Chaturanga Hapuarachi has to say. Let's now take a look at what Donald Trump has to say.
And all of a sudden, everything just stopped. This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. So our goal now is to ensure the integrity for the good of this nation. This is a major fraud in our nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list, okay?
Well, Chaturanga, the current president of the United States, Donald Trump, thinks, well, slightly otherwise, and it has been a baffling situation on the part of the Republicans. First, he said he's going to win the election. He has already won the election. Next, he said he's going to go to the US Supreme Court. What is this hesitancy in the Republican side?
To start off with, that statement was made yesterday in terms of US time, and now it has been, they have gone through the night and it's now morning. So this was yesterday. Donald Trump did not see these results when he was talking about this particular statement. But keeping that in mind, we have to also remember that Donald Trump has always been saying that this might be a rigged election.
Yes.
And that is why he has gone to the Supreme Court. As you say, he said it. He said that there has been major fraud and he's going to seek legal assistance. Now, why does this all matter, and why is there this sense of fraudulency, fraud in terms of the election? That happens, Tarusha, for the exact reason why we see these two states tipping. Now, there is corona in the United States. The highest number of patients reported is from the United States. So a lot of people resorted to mailing in their ballots in terms of the election. Now, when these mailed in ballots are stopped from being recorded as legitimate votes, is the question that several of these states have, especially Georgia and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, to be very precise, especially Pennsylvania. So when these mail-in votes are coming in, that is why US President Donald Trump is talking about, we don't want votes to be added at 4 in the morning. That is what he's talking about. So he wants the election counting of these mail-in votes to be stopped on the 3rd of November, the day of the election. But as per the rules laid out by these separate states, they want all their votes to be counted. In some states, some cases it's the 10th of November, in some cases it's the 6th of November. Especially in the Pennsylvania case, there is a legal battle now with regard to what is going to happen there. And the governor of Pennsylvania says he is going to count every vote. So that is why there is this problem. Donald Trump wants the votes to be counted on the 3rd of November, whereas the states want all the votes to be counted, thereby allowing mail-in votes to be counted until the 6th of November.
What if Trump goes to the Supreme Court? Will the Supreme Court issue a decision in favor of Donald Trump, or what would happen? What is the legal background?
We in Sri Lanka are used to constitutional coups, Tarusha. Same might happen in the United States of America. There are various theories that are being laid out as to what could happen in terms of the Congress, how this would play out in the Congress, how there will be a recount.
We saw the same thing happening way back in 2000 in George Bush's election. The Supreme Court verdict came out for the state of Florida.
Yes.
Do you think something like that would happen, or like regarding the information that we are getting at the moment?
We do not know, Tarush. We do not know, and we cannot say that because it is absolutely clear looking at this map alone that the US people have voted differently this time around. Is that difference enough to get a new president in the White House? That is a question yet to be answered. However, Pennsylvania remains an important state, Georgia remains an important state, North Carolina remains an important state. All these 3 states at the moment have a lead for Donald Trump. Michigan, Wisconsin, yes, they are important, but they have been won by Joe Biden at the moment. So whether it will be Joe Biden or President Trump, whether there will be a constitutional or a coup in terms of politics in the United States of America, that is yet to be answered. We do not know the answer for that. But what we know is that United States under this president went through Corona and COVID-19.
There's huge social unrest in the country.
There was huge social unrest in the country. He was impeached. The current president was impeached, and this is the first time an impeached president is seeking the second term. We spoke about this yesterday as well. In terms of the good things, this is the highest female participation in Congress. This is also the highest spent election in the United States, $14 billion US. So these are factors that we have to keep in mind. Coming back to us in Sri Lanka, how this will play out, how our people, especially in the Asian region, will react to a victory, loss of the current president of the United States will have to be looked into very closely. Finally, the US stock market has to be looked at. When I checked last, there is some sort of uncertainty in the US market ahead of the results coming out. So that also has to be looked at. When the US has an economic problem or uncertainty, the dollar reacts to it, and the other markets, especially small countries like us, dealing with dollars, especially in a situation like this, also has to keep in track of what is going on. So these are the factors that we want to lay before our viewers today.
Thank you, Chaturanga. You said in Wisconsin and Michigan, Biden is leading. Let's now take a look at what Biden had to say.
We feel good about where we are. We believe we're on track to win this election. We knew because of the unprecedented early vote and the mail-in vote, we're going to have to be patient. And it ain't over till every vote is counted. Every ballot is counted. It's not my place or Donald Trump's place to declare who's won this election. That's the decision of the American people. But I'm optimistic about this outcome.
We are now crossing over to our bureau correspondent, Newsfirst bureau correspondent.
With no winner being announced after election night, the election seems to lie in the hands of the key Midwestern swing states. With candidate Joe Biden winning in the states of Michigan and Wisconsin, and candidate Trump trailing closely behind, the result remains to be unknown. With no winner being announced after election night, the election seems to lie in the hands of the key Midwestern swing states. With candidate Joe Biden winning in the states of Michigan and Wisconsin, and candidate Trump trailing closely behind, the result remains to be unknown.
Thank you, Anushka, for that update. Stay tuned to News First for the latest of the US presidential election in 2020. David, it's back to you for more news.
Right, thank you, Tarasha, for that comprehensive look at the current situation in USA. As Tarasha said, you can stay tuned with News First as we bring you the very latest updates via our social media platforms and our news as well. Now, crossing over from stories there in the United States back to Sri Lanka, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has said that the country cannot be placed under lockdown until a cure for COVID-19 is found. Now, in a meeting with the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, the President called on the public to continue their day-to-day activities while adhering to health directives.
Why isn't a nurse at risk of contracting COVID-19? That's because they wear masks and wash their hands frequently. So that is why they have a less likelihood of being infected, although they deal with patients. We must insist on the factors that need to be maintained to ensure that the country can function without disruptions. The public can be allowed to engage in their day-to-day activities, while business and factories can reopen for operations. But the necessary conditions need to be met. Masks must be worn, while social distance must be maintained. Undergo quarantine if you experience symptoms of an illness. These measures must be taken for the country to sustain itself. However, this message has not reached the people. They remain indoors only when there is a curfew. The country can be uplifted. However, people must be educated on these matters.
The president expressed his views on the problems faced by the people in their day-to-day lives.
Self-employed individuals constantly appeal to lift these restrictions as they have been economically affected. Some individuals sell rice packets at the Ambuldenia junction. Some earn a living by selling string hoppers and vades. Others depend on selling vegetables. There are mobile bakery sellers as well. There is a place in which they make Chinese rolls near my residence. However, no one is there now. There are people who depend on daily wages. Since their income has been affected for 10 days due to the curfew, it might take them a year to regain their lost income. Whether it is the president, minister, a politician or a doctor, the bigger picture must be taken into consideration to do the needful. We must look at all angles to make the relevant decisions. What should we do to restore normalcy in the country while bringing the COVID-19 pandemic under control? That is an important aspect. We can issue instructions to close down schools, but consider its impact. That would last for several years. By imposing curfews, the health and economic sectors have been affected as well. Certainly,
170 COVID-19 patients were identified from Colombo and its surrounding areas today. The highest number of patients had been identified from the Baralla police station, with the figure standing at 41. Steps were taken to disinfect the police station following the detection of these patients. Meanwhile, COVID-19 patients were identified from Jampeta Street, Boralla and the Modra housing complex. With the intervention of the Grand Pass Police, entering or leaving the housing complex was restricted temporarily with effect from today. PCR tests carried out at the Colombo port had shown that 11 individuals had tested positive for the virus. Dinuka Guruge, an epidemiologist attached to the Colombo Municipal Council, said the patients had undergone quarantine at the Colombo port. Meanwhile, the general public was urged to inform the Health Ministry of any hospital that refuses to accept patients or provide medical assistance. Hospitals must not refuse the administration of patients under any circumstances. I wish to emphasize that if hospitals refuse to admit patients, the public should file a complaint about it. The Health Ministry will then take stringent action against them.
Journalists on the Satana program yesterday inquired whether quarantine laws were not applicable to ministers and MPs after a lobby correspondent who tested positive for COVID-19 was detected recently.
After a COVID-19 patient is identified at an institution, there is a process that one should follow when working there afterwards. Closing the institute is not the answer. We must adhere to the health guidelines and follow the prescribed procedures. I do not wish for such a situation for any institute. We are taking all possible measures to curb the spread of the virus.
A discourse has arisen in the country over the testing process to detect COVID-19 patients. Several groups have insisted that more PCR tests must be carried out randomly in the country. PCR testing is a widely accepted method that is used to identify COVID-19 patients. Health authorities have drawn their attention towards introducing antigen and antibody tests for this purpose as well. Antibody tests identify the antibodies produced by the immune system of a person who has been infected by the virus. On the other hand, antigen tests assist in determining the presence or absence of an antigen or a protein cell in an individual. However, an antibody test that relates to the immune system of a person does not require time to release results. The Health Ministry has already drawn its attention towards randomly conducting rapid antigen tests.
It will require some time to conduct PCR tests. It involves a certain cost as well. At the same time, there is a limitation of the equipment used in these tests as well. Therefore, the World Health Organization has recommended that antigen tests can be used in addition to PCR tests to identify infected patients. Therefore, in addition to PCR tests, we are carrying out antigen tests to detect patients. The advantage of antigen test is that the sample can be tested immediately.
The Government Medical Officers Association has encouraged the implementation of these tests.
Rapid antigen test එක රෝගීන් ආවේශන ක්‍රියාවලිය සඳහා. එහෙම නැත්නම්
There is a view that antigen tests can be carried out to identify matters concerning the immune system of a person or whether a person who is undergoing quarantine has contracted the virus or not. However, this is not a diagnostic test. This is a screening test. Therefore, the World Health Organization and medical experts have said that antigen tests can be used to identify COVID-19 patients.
ලෝක සෞඛ්‍ය සංවිධානය සහ විශේෂඥයන්ගේ මතය වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
However, the former director of the Medical Research Institute, Dr. Jairuwan Bandara, raised questions over these tests in April this year.
එය රෝග විස බීජය හඳුනා ගැනීමේ පරීක්ෂණයක් නොව ඒ රෝගය ඇඟට ඇතුල් වුණාට පස්සේ ඒ ඇතුල් වූ බව.
This is not a test that can identify the virus. It can be used to identify whether a virus has entered a person's body based on blood samples. This test might indicate that a person has tested positive for COVID-19. However, on most occasions, there is a possibility that these tests might not indicate the existence of the virus in a person's body. If that happens, this would allow an infected person who tests negative to interact within the community. This can lead to the transmission of the disease. It is dangerous for the society to identify patients using these tests.
රෝගියෙක් තහවුරු කරන්න යාම ඒක සමාජයට භයානකයි.
While such views were expressed on antigen tests, several factions have raised suspicion over the procurement of these test kits.
The Health Ministry is making arrangements to introduce antigen tests in the country. We are urging that all relevant companies should be given a chance to be a part of this exercise. Encourage all relevant companies to produce kits. We will be able to identify the most suitable product Only by doing that, if tenders are awarded to only targeted companies, there will be defects in the rapid test kits. The products of some companies have around 80% defects. This would assist in avoid unnecessary expenditure as well.
අපි අනවශ්‍ය වියදමක් වියදම් කරන්නට ඕනේ නැහැ.
ඇන්ටිජන් පරීක්ෂාව වෛද්‍ය විද්‍යාත්මක කොතරම් ඉදිරියෙන් තියෙන පරීක්ෂාවක් වුණත්
Despite how advanced the antigen test may be, we observe how the government has allowed their close associates or allies to import these products to the country and generates profits from it.
ඉඩකඩ දෙන අවස්ථාවක් තියෙනවා පේන්න තියෙනවා.
The ruling party is importing these kits to help their friends and close associates to recover the losses they have incurred and continue operations at their loss-making hotels. This is how the government is using the pandemic without caring for the lives of the general public. There are various types of antigen kits manufactured in various ways. However, we only import the product that has been recommended by the World Health Organization. So far, the World Health Organization has recommended 2 types of antigen kits, and we are only importing these products to the country. The Medical Supplies Division is in charge of the entire process. However, I can provide technical details in this regard.
Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's death toll due to COVID-19 rose to 24 following the demise of a 79-year-old woman in Colombo yesterday. The Government Information Department said that the woman had died of a heart attack that is considered to be a complication of the virus. Meanwhile, the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases reported in the country has reached 12,018. Official figures showed that 6,137 patients are currently under medical care, while 5,858 individuals have recovered from the infections.
Newsfirst made inquiries from the police spokesperson on whether there are plans to lift the quarantine curfew that is currently in effect.
We have already announced that quarantine curfew in the Western Province will be in effect until the 9th of November, excluding the areas that were already under curfew. However, we might have to extend the curfew based on the directives of health authorities considering the rise in COVID-19 cases.
The police spokesperson also commented on the mechanism that is in effect to issue curfew passes.
The public won't be able to obtain curfew permits to travel for personal reasons. Employees attached to 106 categories of state institutions and essential services can use their service IDs to report to work. Curfew permits can be obtained from divisional secretariats to obtain delivery services involving food and medicine. Permits are not essential for delivery services of animal products. They will be able to travel during the curfew if they can submit proof of their employment in the industry. Curfew permits are also not required for individuals attached to the fisheries and plantation industries. Vehicles from other parts of the country that are travelling to and from economic centres will also not require permits to travel during the curfew. It would be sufficient if any official at the respective economic centre confirms the identity of the driver. In the event of a funeral, the close relative of the deceased will be given curfew permits. However, curfew permits will not be issued to conduct weddings or to travel for other personal reasons.
The economic centres in Ratmalana, Bokundara, Meegoda, Peyangoda and Narahempita resumed operations this morning. However, retail trading will not take place at these centres. Minister Mahindananda Alutgamage arrived at the economic centre opened for wholesalers in Narahempita today.
Due to a misunderstanding, a group of people had visited the market for retail purchasing. We apologize for the inconvenience. However, only wholesale trading will take place here. During a meeting chaired by Basil Rajapaksa yesterday, it was mentioned that curfew passes had been issued to police officers for the distribution of essential food items to the general public. There is no issue. All arrangements are in place.
Although the Piliyandala Economic Centre remained open today, only 3 lorries carrying eggs, coconuts and rice were seen at the premises.
The people who visit the economic center purchases goods valued at 2,000 or 3,000 rupees. They have been left helpless since we are being asked to engage in wholesale trading. The buyers are not economically capable of purchasing large stocks.
The Ratmalana Economic Center was disinfected before resuming operations this morning. All vehicles that entered the premises were subjected to inspection, while a considerable number of customers were present to make purchases. The Valisara Dedicated Economic Center remained closed today after 6 individuals had tested positive for COVID-19. Operations at the Dambulla Economic Center returned to normalcy today.
The Dambulla Dedicated Economic Center was opened at 5 a.m. today. There is no change in that. However, because of the cleaning process taking place, we reached a decision to ask all lorries and vehicles to leave the premises by 10 p.m.
Wholesale stores were allowed to remain open in Petta since 5 a.m. today. Meanwhile, Minister Bandula Gunawardena and the senior DIG of the Western Province, Deshabandhu Tennakon, visited Petta to monitor the situation when wholesale stores were kept open.
යාපනයේ 750යි 350යි 450යි 750. එතකොට වෙළඳ පොලේ අඩු ගානටම ගෙනියනවා නම් ඉතින් මේ රට විදේශයක ගෙනියන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ පාරිභෝගිකයෝ දැනුවත් බව තුල තමයි මේකට 750ක් දීලා ගෙනියන්නේ. ඊළඟට සහල් වල ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා.
There is a problem regarding rice because they have been sold at high rates. We will rectify this situation in keeping with the provisions of the Consumer Affairs Authorities Act. We hope to issue a gazette in this regard.
ගැසට් නිවේදනය නිකුත් කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා අද දිනේදී.
Satosa is an institution that carries out a relief scheme for the general public. Satosa is later compensated for the losses. Satosa does not sell products in wholesale. A family only needs 2 kilos of sugar per month and therefore they cannot provide more than a kilo of sugar.
The Essential Goods Importers and Traders Association said that there are sufficient stocks of essential goods in storage facilities. The Broadcasters Guild of Sri Lanka, in a letter addressed to the Minister of Mass Media, has highlighted the many problems faced by the teledrama industry amidst the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. The statement points out that the shooting of teledramas that are continuously telecast is currently being hampered due to various obstacles posed by the factions of the health sector. It added that against a backdrop where the shooting of teledramas was taking place adhering to health guidelines, it was disappointing that they had to face such obstacles. A statement issued added that if the shooting of currently aired teledramas is stopped, approximately 4,500 artists who contributed to that effort will lose their jobs. On behalf of the local teledrama industry, the Broadcasters Guild requests the Minister of Mass Media, Keheliya Rambukpala, to intervene in this matter.
We're going in for a short commercial break. Stay tuned with News First for more of the very latest.
තිල් සිගරට් බොන අයට COVID-19 වෛරස් එක ආසාදනය වෙන්න තියෙන ඉඩ වැඩි කියලා සෞඛ්‍යාංශ කියනවා. මොකද ඔය කරන්නේ?
අනිත් අය මම මේ බීරියලින්ට වීණා වාදනය කරනවා.
මේ දවස්වල YFM අහද්දී දිල්ගේ වොයිස් එක ඇහුණු වෙලාව අපිට SMS කරන්න. ඇති වෙනකන් ඉන්ටර්නෙට් යන්න, කෝල්ස් ගන්න. දවස පුරාම මදි නොකියන්න, රීලෝඩ්ස් දිනන්න.
YFM රීලෝඩ් කකුරට එකතු වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
මගේ හොඳම යාළුවා.
Welcome back to the news. 2 more dead whales had washed up on the Panadura beach this morning. Accordingly, 7 whales and a dolphin have washed up on the coast of Sri Lanka since the largest ever beaching of these mammals were witnessed this week.
The carcasses of 2 whales were discovered at the Panadura coast this morning. Officers attached to the Pradesh Sabha in the area took steps to clean the coast following the recovery of these carcasses. On Monday, a large pod of whales and dolphins had beached on Sri Lanka's coast in Panadura, prompting life-saving units and volunteer groups to launch an operation to push these animals back into the sea. However, some mammals that did not make it had washed up on the Panadura beach and its surrounding coastline. The carcasses of these animals had been buried on the coast.
We provided the required samples to the office of the Veterinary Research Institute in Homagama. We observed external injuries and internal abnormalities as well. We are most likely to send the samples to the Veterinary Research Institute in Peradeniya. After sending them to the institute, we believe that we will be able to determine the reason for their deaths and also why they had beached on the coast.
The National Aquatic Resources Research and Development Agency confirmed that this is the largest beaching of whales to have been recorded in the country in the recent past.
It has been reported that the movement of these mammals has been disrupted due to signals emitted by radars at sea. This is a common occurrence. It is common to witness sea mammals beaching on coasts due to activities such as underwater mining and mineral exploration. However, we have been unable to determine the exact number of deaths.
A joint military exercise involving India, the US, Japan and Australia is taking place at the Bay of Bengal at present.
Sri Lanka's leading luxury boutique hotel W15 Hanthana Estate has been awarded the prestigious Condé Nast Johansson Award 2021 for Best New or Newly Renovated Hotel.
W15 Hanthana is the only hotel nominated in this category from Sri Lanka and has beaten the odds to become the winner against a property in the Maldives. W15 Hanthana is the newly renovated luxury estate bungalow in the foothills of Hanthana close to Kandy. Recognized internationally as a trusted travel reference firm, Condé Nast Johansson's boast 38 years of experience in inspecting hotels and adding to their collection of recommended luxury properties.
The first phase of the three-day quadrilateral Navy exercise in Malabar began yesterday. India, the United States, Japan and Australia will conduct the exercise in the Bay of Bengal. The exercise will demonstrate high levels of synergy and coordination between the navies of the four countries. Showcasing the country's resolve to support an open Indo-Pacific region, the exercise focuses on increasing the four countries' cooperation in the area that has been witnessing increasing Chinese military aggression. The first phase of the Malabar would see complex and advanced naval exercises comprising of surface, anti-submarine and anti-air warfare operations. Cross-deck flying and weapon firing operations are also part of this quadrilateral exercise. Malabar's 24th edition is being conducted as a non-contact at sea-only affair in the view of the coronavirus pandemic. The Malabar, which originally started in 1992 as a bilateral exercise between India and the United States, welcomed Japan as a permanent member in 2015. On the 20th of October this year, it was announced that Australia too will again participate in the exercise. Australia last participated in the Malabar exercise in 2007. According to the Australian Defence Minister Linda Reynolds, Malabar 2020 marked a milestone opportunity for the Australian Defence Force. Reynolds was quoted as saying, quote, "High-end military exercises like Malabar are key to enhancing Australia's maritime capabilities, building interoperability with our close partners and demonstrating our collective resolve to support an open and prosperous Indo-Pacific." End quote. Well, this is a wrap of primetime news here on TV1. For more news, log on to our award-winning website, that is www.newsfirst.lk, or stay tuned to our three social media platforms, that is Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. For the News First team, I'm Devi Paldano. Take care and good night.